to Quincy Point Congregational Church, Church School for All, November 15th. We're on session 8. We're crossing the Red Sea. The music you heard was I Will Be With You. Okay, now, the Israelites were moving to a new place. Although it was exciting to leave Egypt, it was also scary because they were leaving the only home they knew. In today's story, you will find out what happened when they needed to cross water to escape Pharaoh's army. The Israelites were finally free to leave Egypt to go to the new land God would show them, the land promised by Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And another name for Jacob is Israel. God led them. So I want you to take out the leaflet in your book. We're on the leaflet of Crossing the Red Sea, and you can color and see what you would take if you had to leave your home. And you can talk that with your friends, with your family. Okay. Now Joyce is gonna tell you the story.
Well, hello. I'm glad you could come back and visit us today. Today, of course, is November 15th, and we are going to be crossing the sea. And this story is told in Exodus chapter 13, verse 17 through chapter 14, verse 31. And I'm reading it out of the Living Bible, and it's a story form. So sit back and enjoy the story. Okay. So at last, Pharaoh let the people go. God did not lead them through the land of the Philistines, although that was the most direct route to Egypt, to the promised land. The reason was God felt the people might become discouraged by having to fight their way through, even though they had left Egypt armed. He thought they might return to Egypt. Instead, God led them along the route through the Red Sea wilderness. Moses took the bones of Joseph. Remember, I told you that last week, that Joseph made a vow with the sons of Israel to bring his bones when God led them out of the land of Egypt. So God did just that. Leaving Succoth, they camped in Etham at the edge of the wilderness. God guided them by a pillar of cloud during the daytime. Here's my pillar of cloud. He guided them by that. Okay. And then a pillar of fire at night. And there's my fire. So they would always have God's direction. God would always be with them. They could see the pillar of fire at night and the pillar of cloud during the day. They were never out of God's sight, both pillars. Jehovah now instructed Moses, tell the people to turn toward the sea and camp along their shore. Those Israelites are trapped, Pharaoh thought, between the desert and the sea. And once again, I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and he will chase after you. I have planned this to gain great honor and glory over Pharaoh and all his armies, and the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord. So they camped where they were told. When word reached the king of Egypt that the Israelis were not planning to return to Egypt after 3 days, but to keep on going, Pharaoh and his staff became bold again. What is this we have done, letting all these slaves get away? They asked. So Pharaoh led a chase in his chariot, followed by a pick of Egypt's chariot corps, 600 chariots in all, and other chariots driven by the Egyptian officers. He pursued the people of Israel, for they had taken much of the wealth of Egypt with them. Pharaoh's entire cavalry, horses, chariots, charioteers, was used in the chase, and the Egyptian army overtook the people of Israel as they were camped beside the shore. As the Egyptian army approached, the people of Israel saw them far in the distance, speeding after them, and they were terribly frightened and cried out to the Lord to help them. And they turned against Moses, whining, "Oh, have you brought us out here to die in the desert because we were not enough graves for us in Egypt? Why did you make us leave Egypt? Isn't this what we told you while we were the slaves, to leave us alone? We said it would be better off to be slaves to the Egyptians than dead in the wilderness." But Moses told the people, "Don't be afraid. Just stand there and watch, and you will see the wonderful way the Lord will rescue you today." The Egyptians you are looking for, you will never see them again. The Lord will fight for you, and you won't need to lift a finger. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Quit praying and get the people moving. Forward march. Use your rod, hold it out over the water, and the sea will open up a path before you, and all the people of Israel shall walk through on dry ground. I will harden the heart of the Egyptians, and they will go in after you, and you will see the honor I will get in defeating Pharaoh and all his armies, chariots and horsemen, and all Egypt shall know that I am Jehovah." Then the angel of God, who was leading the people of Israel, moved the cloud behind them, and it stood between the people of Israel and the Egyptians. And that night it changed into a pillar of fire, and it gave darkness to the Egyptians, but light to the people of Israel. So the Egyptians couldn't find the Israelis. Meanwhile, Moses stretched his rod over the sea, and the Lord opened a path through the sea, with walls of water on each side, and a strong east wind blew all that night, drying the sea bottom. So the people of Israel walked through the sea on dry ground. Then the Egyptians followed them between the walls of water along the bottom of the sea, all of Pharaoh's horses, chariots, and horsemen. But in the early morning, Jehovah looked down from the cloud of fire upon the array of Egyptians. Their chariot wheels began coming off, so their chariots scraped along the dry ground. "Let's get out of here," the Egyptians yelled. "Jehovah is fighting for them against us." When all the Israelites were on the other side, the Lord said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand again over the sea, so that the waters will come back over the Egyptians." I'm losing my voice, so let me just get a little drink of water, and I'll be right back. Well, I got some water and I'm back again. Thank you. All right, where were we? They said, "Let's get out of here," the Egyptians yelled. "Jehovah is fighting for them and against us." When all the Israelites were on the other side, the Lord said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand again over the sea, so that the waters will come back over the Egyptians and their chariots and horsemen. Moses did, and the sea returned to normal beneath the morning light. The Egyptians tried to flee, but the Lord drowned them in the sea. The water covered the path and the chariots and the horsemen. Of all the army of Pharaoh that chased after Israel through the sea, not one remained alive. The people of Israel had walked through on dry land. The waters had been walled up on either side of them. Thus Jehovah saved Israel that day from the Egyptians. And the people of Israel saw the Egyptians dead, washed up on the seashore. When the people of Israel saw the mighty miracle of the Lord and what he had done for them against the Egyptians, they believed in him and in his servant Moses. That ends this part of our story. It was exciting for them to go through the water. I can't quite imagine having all that water on both sides of me, but they did. Now I'm going to turn this over to Karen because she's going to ask us the questions.
Now we have the questions to better understand the story. How did God show the people where to go?
Well, we found that in Exodus 13:21 through 22.
And it says there that it was a column of cloud during the day, and at night it was lightning that guided them.
Okay, or a pillar of fire. That was the other thing, yeah.
And right here's the cloud, and right here's the lightning.
Aren't they fun?
Woo! Okay.
Okay. I don't think they quite look that way, but you get the idea.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Then the next question is, why do you think Pharaoh wanted the people to come back?
Well, there was, I'm sorry. In Exodus 14:5 through 9, he wanted them to come back because they were slaves. Who they're going to get to do their work? Not only that, they left with a lot of wealth from Egypt. Remember, they were given clothing and money and jewels.
Yes, because God said they would provide for them.
Yes, God would provide for them. Yeah.
Correct. Okay, next question. Why do you think the Israelites were terrified and began crying out?
And we found that in Exodus 14, Exodus 14,
Yep.
10 through 14. Well, they were slaves before, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they knew the big army was coming after them. Wouldn't you be afraid if a big army was coming after you?
Yeah, I would think I would be
And-
afraid they would kill me.
Yes. And the other thing was they were against where the water was, the shore.
Oh, yep.
And there was water there. And how were they going to cross it? How were they going to run away?
Well, that leads us to the next question.
Okay.
Would be, how did God help the Israelites get away from the Pharaoh's army?
Okay. Well, in Exodus 14:15 through 16 and 21 through 25, he helped them get away from the army. He set up a cloud, and they couldn't see the Israelites and where they were. And they thought because they were against the sea, they couldn't move.
Uh-huh.
But God parted the water.
Yeah, Moses put his rod down, and then the sea split.
Right.
Which is
And the people were
unbelievable.
able to move across. But the Egyptians couldn't see them doing this. Not till the next morning.
Oh, and what happened to the chariot wheels? And this.
Well, they all fell off and stuck in the mud,
And those were the Egyptians'
yes,
chariots' wheels.
yes,
Yeah, they got jammed
yep,
and they
they
fell
did.
off and
Yep, right.
so.
They got stuck there.
God did amazing things. The Israelites were safe. How do you think the Israelites felt?
Well, once they saw what God did for them, and it was such a miracle because they had no way to defend themselves, and it was, God did it all.
Mm.
And it was just amazing, and I would feel, how would I feel? I'd feel joyful, I think, that I was able to, we were able to get away, and we were able to cross, and no one got killed or anything happened bad.
Do you think they trusted God to care for them? I
What
think
do you think?
I think they had this experience had made them have a greater faith in God.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. That they believed that Jehovah is who he says he is and has the power to even make the sea part.
Okay. Now I want you to get out the crossing of the sea, and you can do this at home, and you can put them in order, and then that will just remind you about the story and how to maybe memorize it a little better.
Maybe you can even share the story that way with your grown-ups.
Yeah, you can pretend you have school.
Yeah,
and do a Bible study with your mother and father,
yeah,
or your friend.
Yeah.
That would be fun.
Yeah.
Okay, now Joyce is coming next.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to be back again. You heard the story and he answered all the questions, and it was a great tale to tell about how they crossed the Red Sea on dry ground. So now we have on our bulletin board here, our board, we have a map, and maybe you can see it, all right? And it's a map that you have in your leaflets. Look under the map section and you'll find it. And you can trace how the Israelites went from Egypt to the promised land. And so I'm going to put it back here and I'm going to try and trace that with my finger. Now let's see if I can do this. All right, we're going to start here. And this is the land of Goshen. That's where the Israelites lived for 430 years. They were slaves most of that time. And when Moses came and Aaron came to the Pharaoh to let them go, that's where they left from, here. So they traveled down and they got to here. And that's about the story today, going across the sea where God parted the sea, and so they could go across on dry ground. So that's where that happened. And then we travel further down, and that's in a few other lessons that we'll be having. And it takes us right down to the bottom tip of this area. And this is where Moses was given the 10 Commandments from God. So, and then they traveled back up and around, all the way up and around, and then back down again. And then back around again, and all the way over to here, to Jericho. And that's where they came in to the promised land. And that story is quite a long story because it takes 40 years for them to get there. But they learned a lot along the way. They learned how to be people of God. They learned what God wanted from them through the 10 Commandments and how they would govern themselves as a people. Remember, they were slaves for such a long time They didn't know how to govern themselves. They were always told what to do and how God wanted them to live and to be a holy people in front of Him and live for Him and His glory. And so that's the story that we have so far. So when we trace the Israelites did not have a map. Remember that. They didn't have a map. We have maps today. But God, again, guided them by a cloud during the day and then lightning or fire at night. Maps can help us when we study the Bible. Look at the map, and that's what we did. We looked at the map and then traced the route we think the Israelis traveled as they left Egypt, crossed the Red Sea, and entered their new home. Remember that God was always with them, provided for them, even in times when they were afraid. God was with them. Now I'm going to put up our Bible verse, and we're going to say that again together. Okay, we got that up there all right? All right, I think so. This one says, "Fear not, for I am with you." Remember, you have that paper to color. It's in your folder, and I hope you colored it. If you haven't, it'd be fun to do. It's a good reminder that God is always with you. Now we'll say our Bible verse together. God said, "I'll be with you, and this will show you that I am the one who sent you." Exodus 3:12. Great job. Oh, that was a great job. All right. Now we're going to say our prayer together. And you're going to take a deep breath, and you're going to let it out. And you're going to say, "Dear God,
Dear God,
thank you that through your word,
thank you that through your word,
you help me to stand up for what is right.
you will help me to stand up for what is right.
I trust your promise.
I trust your promise.
Amen."
Amen.
And now I ask you, please, to join me together, join with me and Karen together as we say the Lord's Prayer. And I know that you know this. You've done it many, many times. Let's try this again. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Okay, and now we'll give you the blessing. Hold out your hand, all right? Hold out your palm. You're going to be prepared to write your name, right? And then I'm going to say, God said, I will be with you. Print your name. Say together with me, God said, I will be with you. Thank you for being with us today. It is always a blessing to know that God is with us every single day, through every single part of our life, and will never leave us or forsake us. And we're glad that you could join us. So for right now, Karen and I are going to say bye, and we'll see you next time. Blessings.